everyone, welcome back. I am Dr. Alexandra. If you are new to my channel, welcome. We're so excited that you're here. If you've been watching our videos all along, thank you so much. Today's video is a good one. So we're going to be talking about skincare for mature skin. But before we dive into that, if you can just go ahead and hit the like button for me, hit the share button, and share this video with a friend, that would be amazing. Every single time you hit the like button, you help us get our video out there to more women like you that we are just wanting to help. So we really appreciate that. All right, so diving into our video. So again, we're talking about skincare for mature skin. And I use the word mature skin in a very intentional way, right? Because there is a difference between mature skin and aging skin, right? So you can have skin that is aging and mature, and you can have skin that appears aging but is not actually aged chronologically in terms of like years of your life, right? That has to do with the way that we treat our skin. So when we're thinking about aging skin, right? When we think about naturally aging skin, there's a few things that we want to think about. So first of all, we think about there being a natural decrease in collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid, right? Collagen, the scaffold of your skin, elastin gives your skin that bounce, and then hyaluronic acid is a natural hydrator in your skin, and it holds water in. So it is a huge component in our skin's ability to hydrate itself and to be moist and supple. Other things that happen as our skin naturally ages is we see a decrease in something called ceramides and a decrease in cholesterol, and an overall impairment of your skin barrier. So what do I mean by this, right? So cholesterol and ceramides are both fatty acids, right? So ceramides are a fatty acid, and they make up a large component of that skin barrier. Part of what your skin barrier is designed to do is actually to retain water in it. So there's an increase in something called transepithelial water loss, which basically just means that your skin doesn't hold hydration quite as well. And when we think about this, it makes sense, right? It makes sense that this happens because as we age, people tend to need more hydration, and they tend to find that their skin just gets drier really a lot more easily than it did when they were younger. Other things that happen in aging skin is that the epidermis will actually thin. And so what that means is that you end up with that kind of thin, frail skin that you see in aging patients. And this is in contrast to patients who have photo-aged skin. So in photo-aged skin, right, we do see a decrease in collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid, right? And we do see an impairment in that skin barrier. But what we see is that the epidermis will actually thicken, right? That's why when you think about sun-damaged skin, you end up looking a little leathery, right? And that's because the epidermis is actually thickening. You're going to end up with a lot more rough texture, a lot more hyperpigmentation, and a lot more of those very noticeable damaged spots on the skin, right? Even in aging skin, you are going to end up with an increase in kind of mottled skin, so an increase in that rough texture, but it's not going to be quite as pronounced as in photo-aged skin. These are all really important. At the end of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the internal factors. And when we think about internal factors, there's actually research that shows that some of the like hormone replacement and some of the benefits that can have on your skin actually doesn't happen quite as profoundly if your skin is photo-aged. So the number one thing that we can do for our skin is to protect it against the sun, right? And that's at any age in your life, protecting your skin against the sun is going to be most important. So let's talk about skincare. So when we're thinking about skincare for aged skin, we want to think about kind of two heavy-hitting factors, right? We want to think about skin cell turnover as being really important, because one of the things that happens as our skin ages is that the way that your skin turns over new skin cells actually lengthens, and it lengthens pretty dramatically. So what this means is that at the base of the epidermis, there's a stem cell layer that creates new skin cells, and then they're pushed up through the epidermis until they're sloughed off. And that process as we age lengthens, which means that our skin is rougher, it tends to have more discoloration, and our products don't work quite as well, which nobody wants. So that is really important. The other thing that we want to think about is that skin barrier function that we talked about. So how do we maintain our skin barrier, and how do we improve our skin barrier? And then obviously we want to always protect against UV damage. So with all those things in mind, I'm going to kind of run through a few things that I would consider in mature skin as like really great treatment products. First of all, you want to always have a good cleanser. Anybody who knows me or who's been in my office knows that I am the world's biggest cleanser snob on the face of the world. I think that having a good cleanser is the most important thing. And I think that there's so many people that think, okay, I'll skimp on my cleanser because I'd rather have a good treatment. Like serum or something like that. I don't agree with that. I think that a good cleanser sets the entire tone for your skincare routine and can make just a world of difference. So when we think about having a good cleanser, right, consistency matters. And when we think about consistency in mature skin, this really, really matters. And it matters because of the pH, right? So naturally, our skin is about 5.5 in pH, so it's pretty neutral. And the different cleansers that we choose really have differing pHs that vary a lot, and that can make a really big difference in the skin. So when we're thinking about a cream cleanser, right, cream cleansers tend to be more on the acidic side of the spectrum versus foam cleansers tend to be more basic. In mature skin, foam cleansers, I really, really would not recommend. They're usually way too harsh and way too basic for the skin. You want to pick something that's going to be neutral, right? Most cleansers are in that pH window, like that's what makes the most sense, right? But going towards something that's a little bit more, maybe like a gel consistency, more of a neutral consistency is going to be helpful than going towards something like a foam, which is going to be just too harsh for most people with mature skin. The other thing to think about is that you really want to stay away from bar soap. In this video, I'm going to sprinkle in some of my absolutely do nots on your skin, and bar soap is one of my absolutely do nots. It's one of those things where when my patients tell me they're using bar soap on their skin, I actually have to kind of actively think about what my face is doing because it's just one of the worst things that you can do. So bar soap, the pH of bar soap is like 9.5. And I just talked about the fact that the pH of your skin is going to be 5.5. That's going to make a huge difference. It's going to affect the acid mantle of your skin. It's going to affect your skin barrier. And it's just way too basic. So changing up your cleanser is going to be something that you'll notice a huge difference if you're using bar soap. So that's my number one don't on your skin, and then picking a neutral pH. The other thing is that if you pick a neutral pH cleanser, then normally you can stay away from toners, right? So toners, in my opinion, oftentimes are one of those steps that you don't really need. The reason why toners were developed was actually to, again, balance out the pH of the skin if you put something harsher on it, like a cleanser that wasn't properly pH balanced. A lot of cleansers now are properly pH balanced, and so the idea of a toner is actually completely unnecessary, right? And a lot of toners are alcohol-based, which can just be really drying and irritating to the skin, so something that we may want to stay away from. The caveat to this would be if you're using like an active ingredient kind of toner, like a salicylic acid-based toner for acne, then that's a completely different mechanism, but kind of that general overall idea that you need a toner after a cleanser, a really good cleanser will actually balance the pH of your skin, and so you don't need that toner. So that's something we can actually get rid of. The next thing we want to think about is going to be skin cell turnover, which we talked about, right? So when we think about skin cell turnover, there's kind of two ideas that we may want to consider. The first one is retinol, right? So the research on retinol is fantastic in terms of increasing collagen production in the skin, increasing skin cell turnover, reducing hyperpigmentation. And on tretinoin, there is actually a good research on tretinoin actually decreasing precancerous skin lesions. So you'll notice I said precancerous, not cancerous, right? But that is helpful. So that can be an amazing skin treatment. When would we want to stay away from retinol? So in a lot of patients, retinol is too irritating, right? So if it's too irritating, you can work your way up. Work your way up in strength, right? Work your way up in frequency. And then if that's still too much, then a lot of patients will even put a moisturizer on underneath their retinol. So research now shows that you should put a moisturizer on first, then your retinol on second. We used to think, okay, we should mix them together, but we found that the penetration for that was just uneven and people were just not getting even results. So it's moisturizer on first, then retinol on second, and then work your way up, right? So oftentimes patients will start with a couple times a week, and then 3 times a week, and then 4 times a week. And then they can work their way up to nightly, and then they may be able to work their way up in strength. Other times we would not want to use a retinol, right? We don't want to use a retinol if we're going away on vacation or if we're going to be out in the sun, right? Retinol really does cause sun sensitivity. And so it is not a product that we want to use if we're not using a sunscreen daily, which we need to be doing. But if we're not for some reason, then we don't want to use it. Or if we're going to be away on vacation or in the sun, that's a bad idea. The other thing that you may want to consider would be acids. So acids on the skin, again, kind of what acids do is they function to kind of dissolve the connection between your upper layer of your skin cells and allow you to slough those skin cells off, right? So one of the things we talked about was the fact that you don't slough off your skin as readily and as frequently as you do when you're younger. And so that can lead your skin to be rougher, have more hyperpigmentation and more texture changes, but also for your products not to work as well. So we think about acids for aging skin, we're usually thinking about alpha-hydroxy acids. So alpha-hydroxy acids, what they do is they stay on the surface of the skin and they work on the surface of the skin. This is in contrast to something like a salicylic acid, which is a beta-hydroxy acid, which dives into the pores and actually helps to clear out the pores. That's why salicylic acid is used more in acne patients. So we think about aging, we're thinking about usually glycolic and lactic acid. So glycolic acid is a great choice in patients. It is one of the smaller molecules, so it can get deeper into the skin. And it really does help with aging and collagen production and decrease in fine lines and wrinkles. Lactic acid is usually added, often added in products with glycolic acid. And lactic acid is a little bit bigger of a molecule, so it works closer to the surface of the skin. But lactic acid is hydrating on its own, so it can be a good kind of resurfacer while still having that hydrating quality. So lactic acid can be a really, really great option. Usually we use products that are meant to resurface the skin at night. So retinols and acid products are usually really good nighttime products. Other things you may want to consider for aging skin. So if hyperpigmentation is a big part of your skin, like the way that you feel about your skin, you feel like your skin is dull, lifeless, and has a bunch of dark spots, then vitamin C can be a really good option. We actually have videos which we will link on choosing the right vitamin C, because vitamin C is a very finicky product. Most of the vitamin Cs you're ordering online that are being shipped to you in the heat are coming and they're not going to be effective at all. So picking the right vitamin C product really matters, and I'm going to link a video for that. The other thing that you want to think about in the morning is to heal up that skin barrier. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we're going back to what we think about the skin is losing, right? So the skin has lost ceramides and lost cholesterol. And so replenishing those ceramides is really important. A lot of really good moisturizers for aging skin have ceramides in them. This is why CeraVe, right, is such a big product line, because they were one of the first product line that came out with ceramides to help to restore that skin barrier. What this is doing is it's actually helping with skin barrier repair. So not only hydrating the skin short term, right, but helping to decrease that transepithelial water loss so that your skin long term holds more of its water and holds more of its hydration. A good moisturizer is going to be really, really important. With this, you want to pick something that's going to be clean, right? So I'm a big advocate of picking things that don't have parabens and don't have phthalates in them, because all of those things are endocrine disruptors. And in our society, we do not need any help with screwing up our hormones. We just do not need any help with that, right? And so we don't need our skincare to be part of that. So picking things that are paraben-free, phthalate-free, and have ceramides in them to help repair that skin barrier is really, really important. This is going to lead me to my next don't. Another thing that I really, really, really am not a fan of putting on your skin is oils, right? Things like coconut oil, avocado oil. I've heard all kinds of ridiculous things. When we think about the skin, right, part of the reason why the science of your skincare is so important is that larger molecules don't actually absorb into the skin. They just kind of sit on the skin. And so oftentimes what we find with oils is that oils are going to sit on your skin, but they're not going to penetrate into your skin barrier and actually repair your skin barrier. So if you are having skin that feels like it needs that very intense hydration, going to something that has some active ingredients, some ceramides to help restore that skin barrier is going to be much more effective over time. and it's actually going to give you what you want. Most of the time when we're thinking about putting like coconut oil on our skin, it's really not hydrating our skin. It's just sitting on there. So it can give you that false sense that it's helping, but it's not really helping as much as you think it is on like a molecular level, right? Another, kind of while I'm on this topic, another thing that I really hate when patients put on the skin is things like apple cider vinegar and baking soda. Again, we're going back to the pH of the skin, right? And we want to maintain that pH, or if we are trying to change the pH for something, right? Like kind of like what acids do to help with skin cell turnover. We want to do that in a really controlled way. Putting apple cider vinegar and baking soda on the skin, the swing of those pHs is just way too much. And so that's something that I do not recommend at all. The next thing that we want to put into our skincare for mature skin is a good sunscreen. I have done many videos on this. I am a big fan of mineral-based sunscreen, so zinc and titanium oxide. Zinc oxide is actually the best studied ingredient for protecting against UVA rays. So there's UVB, which is burning, and UVA, which is aging. And zinc oxide is one of the best things for protecting against UVA rays, but it also protects against blue light. And in today's society, right, we're on Zoom, we're on our phones, we're always on our computers, we're in front of our TVs. We get a lot of blue light, and there's a lot of good research on blue light aging the skin very similar to UV photo damage. And so being able to protect against that is important, and zinc oxide is one of the ingredients that we think about. So if you're putting on a sunscreen every single day, a mineral-based sunscreen only is going to be really important, because again, we don't need any help disrupting our hormones, like we just don't. So those are kind of the main takeaways that I would think about for mature skin in terms of getting the basics down, right? Other things to consider would be something like a growth factor product. So if you are really experiencing aging in your skin, a growth factor product can be a really great option. These products usually are not the cheapest products in the entire world, but that's because there's a lot of science behind them. And the majority of them come from actual like skin medium to be able to get you those growth factors. So they can be really helpful. Other factors to consider, right? When we're thinking about aging skin, we want to think about what we're doing to our skin, and then kind of what kind of environmental assaults are happening on our skin. So hydration, getting enough water in is important. Reducing our pollution is important. Honestly, with that, it's so difficult. There's very little that we can actually do, but try to be cognizant of those things is helpful. And then reducing our blue light, or protecting our skin against blue light. Protecting our skin against blue light is probably going to be more realistic, right? And so zinc oxide is one of the ingredients that I recommend for that. And then increasing things like carotenoid intake. So carotenoids, which are found in your orange vegetables, right? Carotenoids, there's research on carotenoids actually protecting skin against UV damage. This is not to say that they should be used on their own to protect against UV damage. That's a terrible idea. But in conjunction with things like your vitamin C underneath your sunscreen, and then increasing your orange vegetable intake can be a really great way to protect your skin. Astaxanthin, which is that pink nutrient that gives shrimp that kind of pinkish color, right? Also is a good protector of the skin against UV damage that you can get in your diet. And then we want to think about hormone status, right? So as you age, usually use about 1% of collagen per year. And studies show that women will lose on average about 30% of their collagen in the first 5 years post-menopause. And that's because the decrease in particularly estrogen, but both estrogen and testosterone really change the skin. Having normal amounts of estrogen, or healthy amounts of estrogen, has been shown to increase collagen and elastin, and it decreases the activity of something called a matrix metalloproteinase, or an MMP, which basically degrade collagen, right? And so it can actually slow down that process. Estrogen also helps with skin vascularization, so kind of the blood flow to the skin, and then helping to maintain a normal kind of epidermis. Testosterone, on the other hand, testosterone does really help with collagen production, but is less helpful on kind of some of those other factors like the vascularization, elastin, things like that, less helpful on that. What's actually interesting though, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'm going to mention it again, is that there are interesting studies showing that the benefits of hormones on the skin, on aging skin, actually are significantly less if your skin is aged by photo damage. So again, when we have that kind of thicker epidermis and that really rough texture to the skin that's usually photo damage, your hormone status is going to be less beneficial. So again, starting earlier, really protecting your skin against photo damage is really, really important. So tell me in the comments below what your favorite anti-aging products are. I will also link in the description some of my favorite products, like my favorite cleanser that I cannot live without and that I recommend to everybody because I love it. And we'll see you next week for our next video.